Hey guys, Fletch the Football Observer here, and today's video is going to be a Premier League preview show previewing Game 4 of the new 2019-2020 season. There are some interesting and exciting games potentially in store for us in this upcoming round of fixtures, and in this video I preview and give my predictions on them all. So without further ado, let's begin. We begin with arguably the fixture of the round, and it takes place on Sunday as Arsenal host Tottenham in the first North London derby of the season, and the setting is the Emirates Stadium. Last weekend both sides were defeated by their respective opponents, with the Gunners losing 3-1 to Liverpool at Anfield, while slightly more surprisingly Tottenham lost 1-0 to Newcastle. Which side will bounce back here and not only take the bragging rights over their fierce rivals, but also the 3 points? This is set to be a fierce and exciting game here. Both sides have players that can hurt each other in a key attacking areas, and this could be a high scoring and entertaining game, which makes it a little more tricky to call for the result. This fixture could seriously go either way, with two teams that can either be brilliant on their day or can be very inconsistent. In saying that though, I'm going to call this right down the middle. I'm going to say that this is going to be 2-2 with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Harry Kane both getting on the score sheet for their respective clubs. Manchester City host Brighton in our next game at the Etihad Stadium. City were victorious against Bournemouth last time out as they defeated the Cherries by 3-1, whilst Brighton suffered their first loss of the season, losing 2-0 to Southampton last weekend. Will City claim their third win of the season here, or will Brighton upset the odds and stun City by winning in this game? It's very difficult to see anything else but a City win here. The Tottenham game aside, they've been very clinical in front of goal, and I would expect that to continue here. Brighton can set up to be very strong defensively and look to use set pieces as a way to hurt City, but ultimately I don't think that it will be enough and they'll have enough about them to get anything from this game. I'm going to predict a 3-0 City win here, with Sterling to at least get his 6th goal of the season. Our next game sees the Saints meet the Red Devils as Southampton host Manchester United at St Mary's in Saturday's midday kickoff. Last week Southampton picked up their first win of the season, defeating Brighton 2-0, whilst United suffered a bit of a shock defeat when Crystal Palace beat them 2-1 at Old Trafford. Will the Saints make it back-to-back wins here, or will United bounce back from last week's defeat? It's a big game for both sides, this one. Southampton will certainly fancy their chances here. They'll be encouraged not just by the close encounters that these two clubs had last season, but also by United's loss last week. As for United, they'll want to bounce back and give the United supporters a reason to be a little more positive going into the international break. This game could seriously go either way, which is why I'm not entirely confident when I say this, but I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw. Our next game sees Chelsea host Sheffield United at Stamford Bridge. Last time out, Frank Lampard picked up his first win as Chelsea manager as he saw his side beat Norwich 3-2, whilst the Blades suffered their first defeat of the season, losing 2-1 to Leicester. Will Chelsea make it back-to-back wins here, or will United stun Chelsea and hand them their second defeat of the season? Now this game should be an entertaining one. It may be early days in the season, but already you can tell that Chelsea will be an interesting watch at both ends of the pitch, and you can tell that the Blades are not here just to make up the numbers. They are here to give the league a real go and have actually impressed many since their arrival. For this game though, again, it's another fixture that's a little more difficult to call than what most people may think. I could see the Blades taking something from this game, but I do think that the Blues will just edge this one, and I'm going to predict a 2-1 Chelsea win. Turf Moor plays host to the next game on this list as Burnley take on Liverpool in Saturday's evening fixture. Last weekend, Burnley had to settle for a point against Wolves following a last-minute equaliser by Wolves, whilst Liverpool were 3-1 winners against Arsenal, with Mohamed Salah scoring a brace in that game. Will Sean Dyche's men stun Liverpool here, or will Liverpool maintain their perfect start to the season with their 4th straight win here? As usual, Burnley will probably prove to be tough opposition here for Liverpool, no doubt about it. They can be strong defensively and unsettle the Reds with their energy and physicality, but ultimately, I think the Reds will prove to have too much quality for Burnley to handle here. Liverpool haven't been at their best so far this season, but they've been clinical and have always managed to get the job done regardless. My prediction for this game is that the Reds will win 3-1 here, with Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane both getting on the score sheet. Our next game on this list is Leicester versus Bournemouth, as these two sides clash at the King Power Stadium. Last time out, the Foxes picked up their first win of the season, beating Sheffield United by 2-1, whilst the Cherries suffered defeat to Manchester City last weekend, losing 3-1 to the defending Premier League champions. Will Leicester maintain their unbeaten start to the season here, or will Bournemouth bounce back from last week's defeat to win against the Foxes? Leicester have made a pretty solid start to the season, a start that may have slightly gone under the radar, but I'm sure that will actually suit them. And they have actually a good opportunity here to stay unbeaten going into the international break. As for Bournemouth, a more spirited loss, shall we say, against City last week for some parts of the game, but ultimately the quality of City proved too much for them to handle. As for this game though, I'm going to give the Foxes the slight edge here. My prediction is 2-1 to Leicester, James Maddison to get on the score sheet for the Foxes. The Hammers meet the Canaries in our next game as West Ham host Norwich at the London Stadium. West Ham picked up their first win of the season last weekend, beating Watford 3-1, whilst Norwich suffered defeat to Chelsea, with the Blues winning 3-2 at Carrow Road. Will West Ham make it 2 wins on the bounce here, or will Norwich pick up their second win of the season? West Ham, the definition of inconsistency. They very well could defeat Norwich here, or they very well could be extremely poor, and that could allow the Canaries to walk away with all 3 points in this game. Of course, Norwich have the informed Teemu Pukki, who will be looking to add more goals to his tally for the season. He's already on the hunt for goal number 6 for this current campaign. And with his current form, you'd have to say that the Canaries will always have a chance of taking something from this game. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw though. I think Sebastian Haller and Teemu Pukki will both get on the score sheet for their respective clubs. Our next game sees Wolves travel to Everton at Goodison Park in Sunday afternoon's fixture. Last time out, Everton were beaten by Aston Villa 2-0, whilst Wolves made it 3 straight draws following a last-minute penalty that was converted as the equaliser in a 1-1 draw with Burnley last Sunday. Will Everton bounce back here, or will Wolves pick up their first victory of the new season? Interesting game ahead, this one, between two teams that you'd imagine may be rivals for the Europa League places this season. Everton, inconsistent start to the season, whilst Wolves may have the Europa League qualifiers taking their toll on them. So this could very well be an open game that could go any which way. But with that being said, I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw here for this game. In the penultimate game on this list, Selhurst Park plays host to Crystal Palace versus Aston Villa in one of the 6 3 o'clock games to take place on Saturday. Both sides picked up their first wins of the season last weekend, with Palace beating Manchester United 2-1, whilst Aston Villa beat Everton 2-0 at Villa Park. Which side is going to make it back-to-back wins here? Big game for both sides here. Both sides will want to prove that the result against their respective opponents last weekend wasn't just a one-off, especially for Palace, who obviously beat the bigger opposition, shall we say, or with all due respect. It's one thing to beat United, but they will need to show signs of consistency by beating a team that's more likely to be going to be around them in the league standings. As for Villa though, it's been a tough start to the season for them, but they have a good chance here of going into the international break with 6 points from possible 12. I'm going to predict a 2-1 Villa win for this game. And in our final game, Newcastle are at St James's Park as they prepare to host Watford in another 3 o'clock game on Saturday. The Magpies picked up their first win of the season last weekend with a 1-0 victory over Tottenham, whilst Watford are the only team in the Premier League to have not picked up a single point so far this season, having lost their opening 3 games, with their latest defeat coming against West Ham, in which they lost 3-1. Will Newcastle make it 2 wins on the bounce and heap more misery onto Watford's poor start to the season, or will Watford pick up their first win of the new campaign? Another interesting game this one. Newcastle will want to prove that last week's victory wasn't a fluke, whilst Watford will want to give their fans something to cheer about following a poor start to the season. For this game though, I think Watford will finally get a point on the board, because my prediction for this game is that it will end 1-1 come the final whistle. And that wraps up this Premier League preview show for Game 4 of the new 2019-2020 season. Guys, if you have any thoughts, comments or predictions of your own on any of the round's fixtures, I'd love to read them in the comment section below. Otherwise, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things would be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch the Football Observer. This has been another Premier League preview show, and I will soon speak with you all again soon in another video.